So now that we have seen what regression is and what regression analysis is and the various types of regression, let us in this module look at what predicting future values is. Or how would you use regression to predict future values? Or what is the general meaning of predicting a value? And what are the various types of predictive analytics that one can do with AI and machine learning? So simply put, prediction is a way of saying that if on a particular graph I had this point 1 and then I had point 2 and then I had point 3, I had point 4, can you predict that what will be the point that is where so this is like your x is on this line, right? So this is your x line. So can you predict what will be the y coordinate, and the y in this case would be this, right? So this would be your y coordinate, and the question to ask is, can you tell me where y will be when x is at this particular point, right? Now we know where y is at this x we know where y is, this x we know where y is, this x we know where y is, this x we know where y is. But can we predict? Now we have these data points. So the simple thing we could do is we will use regression analysis. And the regression analysis could get us a regression, a linear regression in this case, which would essentially be a straight line, right? And this would be a regression line. Now technically you would not have this whole line. Is that correct? This is the equation of the line. But what is the accuracy of that line? The accuracy of the line is only from this particular point to this point. That's all that you have the line for. These are the points you fit. Now, when the question is asked that what is the value of y when x is at this particular point, what you have to do is you have to do prediction. So you're extrapolating this line. So I'm going to say, or maybe the whole thing follows the same pattern, right? And if it follows the same pattern, then I'm going to simply extend this line, and then that's it. And then now I know that when x is particular this value, my y is at this particular point. So this is my y marker when this is my x marker, right? And that I got by extrapolating the line. But that may not be true, right? Why? Because what you did could be completely wrong. So let's say we actually find out. So you predicted that that is the value. But in reality, let's say x came out to be, so the y came out to be here, right, at this particular value of x. Then what would you do? You would have to rerun your regression. And when you rerun your regression, the regression may actually correct itself to saying that this line was not actually straight. Maybe it was a curve, right? So maybe this is how my line should be. Now what does it say? Now next value of x, that is if it comes, then you may predict that at this particular point you're predicting that this is your x, but maybe it's not, right? And if that's not, or maybe it is, so if it is, then your curve is correct. But if it's not, then you predicted the wrong value, in which case you may again correct the line. So let's say in this case my x comes here. So you may now say that, oh, the line actually goes something like this, and that you could correct. So you can keep doing predictive analysis and you can keep predicting points, and eventually you're going to expect that your system understands what predictions you're doing and it's going to start adjusting into those predictions. Now, as long as your system has a pattern which is predictable, you are going to be able to do the predictions. If you don't have a pattern that is not, if you don't have a pattern that is predictable, then you will not be able to do predictions. Now, are predictions a concept of, say, regression? Because this is like predicting with regression. No, not necessarily, right? Predicting could happen in a lot of scenarios, which is also in recommendation engines. So when we see recommendation engines in, say, e-commerce websites, right, that is, let's say Amazon or eBay or Alibaba is actually throwing items that you may be interested in, and it's showing you the items that you may be interested in, that is actually predicting what items you may be interested in. right? So that is also a form of predicting. So it's not, you wouldn't call it predicting future values because that would be more of a regression game, but you would call it predictive analytics, right? And we will be covering some of this predictive analysis and various algorithms as part of, let's say, k-means clustering, k-nearest neighbor, which are several clustering algorithms. We will be looking at classification algorithms, which are more of pattern recognition than predictive, but can be used alongside predictive, and they come to use. And then we have a dedicated module on recommendation engines, which will cover the various types of predictions. So throughout the course, we have to know that you're going to use AI and machine learning actively to do predictions. So either you're doing it for pattern matching, which is figuring out what item is what, and figuring it out is also an approximate or a predictive figuring it out, right? So your system is going to say this is possibly, so let's say if you're trying to look at mammals or something like that, this is possibly a lion and this is possibly a cat, right? And that is how it's going to say. Now, that is basically essentially, even though you're doing pattern recognition, it is essentially predicting what that particular animal is going to be. But the general term to use is called pattern recognition. So we will look at some of these predictive analytic techniques throughout the rest of the course. But I hope this, example of what predictive analytics means with regression and predicting future values with regression means is kind of understood as part of this particular module.